What's up everyone, I'm IAMOBG for tastingskills.com. Welcome back to another video. Today I am talking about Goose Island Brewery. Now this is an iconic brewery. It was established in 1992 and they make a lot of beers. Now they have an extensive barrel aging program that they do between bourbon barrel aging and wine barrel aging. Now they started this program in 2004, which was the first release of the Bourbon County beers. Now when we look at this brewery, it is a very extensive brewery. Their barrel program is just insane. There's new beers that come in, there's beers that are discontinued, and this program is subject to the elements of the state that it's in, which is Illinois. They're located in Chicago, and what happens is that as the weather gets hot or cooler, well, the climate is in control, meaning the barrel will expand or then shed that, making these really, really special since there is a lot of work that you need to put in when you have an extensive barrel program like that, or when you just barrel age beers, for example. Since these are long-term projects, they're very expensive. That's why these beers aren't inexpensive. I mean, we're talking between $15 to $30 depending on the market that you're in. So what do I actually think about these? Well, first of all, I was able to get 9 of these. There's 5 of the 2020s, there is 3 of the 2019s, and there's 1 of the 2018s, and we're gonna cover all of them extensively. The mash bill is pretty much the same, so I will try to make it as quick as I can since these beers are so technical. So make sure that you stay all the way through here because this is going to be a very long show. All right, so let's get into them, starting with the Bourbon County brand special number 4 stout. This is an oatmeal stout aged in bourbon barrel with Ethiopian coffee called Metabuku from Intelligentsia and maple syrup from Bissell Maple Farm. The ABV on this is 13.3. I didn't find the hop on these, but this is an IBU of 60. And if you look at the neck labeling here, you can age this up to 2 years in bottle. Then we have the Bourbon County brand stout Old Forester 2020. Now this one is aged in 2019 Old Forester birthday bourbon barrel, and this has an ABV of 14.6%. And the mash bill on this is 2-row, black malt, caramel chocolate, Munich 10, and roasted barley. And the hop selection on this is millennial, and the IBU is 60. And that's pretty much going to be the mash bill for all of them unless I dictate different. Now on the bottleneck, this says that it could be aged up to 5 years. Then we have the Bourbon County brand Kentucky Fog Stout 2020. Now this one is barrel aged with tea from Kilogram Teas, and the teas in here are Earl Grey, black tea, and honey. This has an ABV of 14.1%, and again the mash bill is the same as the previous one, and the IBU is 60. The bottleneck on this one says that you can age it up to 2 years. Then we have the Bourbon County brand Stout 2020. This is the original bourbon barrel aged stout, and this has an ABV of 14.6%. The mash bill is the same as I said previously, and the hop selection again is millennium on this one, and the IBU is 60. This one you can age up to 5 years. Then we have the Bourbon County brand Stout 2019, same as the previous one, but this one is an ABV of 14.7. This is the same mash bill and the same hop selection, the same IBU, and you can age it up to 5 years. Then we have the Bourbon County brand Monsieur Stout 2019. This one is bourbon barrel aged with cherries, granola, oats, brown sugar, and 100% natural flavors added. This has an ABV of 14.1, and on the bottleneck, it says that you could age it up to 5 years. Then we have the Bourbon County brand Wheatwine Ale Larceny barrel aged 2019. This is a Wheatwine Ale, and this is aged, of course, in a larceny bourbon barrel, and this has an ABV of 15.3, and you could age this one up to 5 years. Then we have the Bourbon County brand Wheatwine Ale. Again, This is a 2018. This has the same as the previous one, but the ABV is 15.4. But this one isn't aged in a larceny bourbon barrel. The bottleneck also says that you could age this one up to 5 years. And finally, we have the oldest vintage, which is the Bourbon County brand Midnight Orange Stout 2018. This stout is aged in bourbon barrel with orange peels, cocoa nibs that are added, and the ABV on this one is 15.2. And on the bottleneck, it says that you can age it good up to 2 years. Now, when we look at the packaging on this, I really love this packaging. I mean, it's real simple. It's really to the point. It gives you all the explanations that you need. I love the labeling around the neck here, and at the back here, as you see, it gives you how long you should be aging these beers, or what's the maximum that you should be. Plus, they always talk about their partners, which I really like. And then this is vintage 2020, as it says here. The packaging is just classic here. I mean, it's kind of hard not to have this packaging down at this point. I mean, they were established in 1992. They were bought by Anheuser-Busch or Budweiser, or whatever you want to call it, in 2011. This is just a classic barrel-aged beer. This is the original one. This is the biggest program. I mean, this is just a must if you're into collecting beers or into barrel-aged beers. The packaging is just amazing on this. All right, so let's get to the tasting notes. But before that, do you want to taste like a pro? Head over to tastingskills.com, put your name and email into the magical box, and I will send you my free 17-page guide to the fundamentals of tasting. All right, now, let's taste these bad boys and see how they do. Starting with the Bourbon County Brand Special number 4, 2020. The color is black to brown, as you can see. Right away, you get this coffee stout nose that has notes of roasted beans, mocha, chocolate, hazel, and vanilla. On the mouthfeel, you have these deep roasted chocolate layers that is medium on the finish, but the acidity does drive some layers of coffee and wood tannins that are well balanced. This is just the classic barrel-aged stout. The acidity drives a lot of things. There is a lot of alcohol. I mean, it is over 13%, but it is not out of balance, which is really, really well done. Because traditionally, when we get to these barrel-aged high bourbon beers, sometimes the alcohol just overpowers everything. All right, now let's move on to the Bourbon County Brand Stout Old Forester 2020. Once again, the color is black to brown. On the nose, you just get this explosion of bourbon, oak, smoke, but the alcohol is really, really present on this one. The mouthfeel, the bourbon barrel just takes over, and this one has just a very high alcohol presence. This has some fruit that drives the acidity, but for me, this is a little too high in alcohol, but there are some spicy notes at the end that are really interesting. This had too much bourbon barrel to it, and I think that it's just, like I said previously, sometimes the bourbon just overtakes the beer. And in that one, I think that it needs more time in the bottle, because as it ages, I think that it's gonna develop, it's gonna have more aromas. The bourbon won't be as present as it is right now. All right, let's move on to the Bourbon County brand Kentucky Fog Stout 2020. The color is once again black to brown. On the nose, you get the tea that just jumps out at you with bergamot and Earl Grey into some black tea notes that just explode out of the glass. This is so pretty. On the mouthfeel, here we go with the bergamot, the Earl Grey, the black tea into some serious layers that deliver this long acidity that pushes all kinds of zesty fruit layers. It makes this such a long, lengthy finish. This one was by far my favorite. I mean, the tea, the bergamot, the length, the endless layers of those teas and dried fruit, and just an explosion of aromas that just match right into the palate. This was such a beautiful, solid beer. Just overall balance, perfect. This was so good. Oh my. This is pretty much my favorite here at this point. All right, let's move on to the Bourbon County Brand Stout 2020. Once again, the color is black to brown. On the nose, you get the smoke, the vanilla, and some burnt wood. But the alcohol once again shows up, and it's very present in this one. On the mouthfeel, you get this charred oak and smoke, but the stout style is complex, and it delivers some high alcohol notes that push the wood tannins. But this again, the alcohol just dominates in this one. This was really similar to the first one. The alcohol was really dominant, but there was a lot more wood tannins. It was a lot more complex. I again, I think that this beer just needs more time in the bottle here so that the alcohol goes away and you get more complex layers as it ages. All right, let's move on to the Bourbon County Brand Stout 2019. The color is black to brown as usual. The nose has smoke, charred oak, into some hints of dried fruit, but this is subtle. And the alcohol is also present on this one. On the mouthfeel, you get these lovely layers of the chocolate caramel that gives you this mocha, into some zesty flavors like tangerine, oranges, and some smoke once again that end up delivering this acidity that eventually pushes the wood tannins that are really long and complex. This was so chocolate driven. You had coffee, tea, caramel, the charred oak, the wood tannins that were spicy, well developed, well balanced, super long finish. This was such a solid beer, so good. Yes, the alcohol was there, but not out of balance on this one. Let's move on to the Bourbon County brand Monsieur Stout 2019. The color, black to brown. On the nose, you get cherry, smoke, chocolate, charred oak, into these layers of smoke that are delicate and complex at the same time. On the mouthfeel, this is just full of lovely cherries that have been aged. Then you get these great wood tannins that are so well balanced, and this just has great fruitiness to it. Now, the finish is just endless, and the alcohol drives this acidity of the cherry note into this amazing spicy finish that is super long. Finish on this was just never ending. This was so delightful. The cherries on here just do it for me. I was such a sucker for this beer. I am absolutely in love with this one. All right, let's move on to the Bourbon County brand Wheatwine Ale, Larceny Barrel Aged 2019. The color is reddish to deep amber. On the nose, you get red apples and some dried fruit into an orange and tangerine. Some hints of strawberries, but the alcohol is very present on here. On the mouthfeel, this is pure Larceny Bliss Barrel. This has really taken over the beer right now, and out of the gate, the acidity delivers these sweet tannins of the wood and the red fruit, but the alcohol once again is right at the back of your mouth, and this just drives this never-ending lengthy finish. This was so fruity, a little lighter than the cherry one. The length was super long once again, but for me, the alcohol was so present. I mean, this is already a 2-year-old in-bottle beer, but I think it needs more time. The Larceny Barrel just took over the whole thing here, but yet it still had some quality balance overall. All right, let's move on to the older vintage of the Bourbon County brand Wheatwine Ale 2018. On the color, you get this reddish deep amber, just like the previous one. On the nose, you get these roasted notes of caramel, toffee, into this charred oak that turns into this lovely smoke. On the mouthfeel, this one does have a lot more barrel to it than the previous one, but this is mostly fruit, and it's driven by the acidity that has a much better balance than the Larceny one. You get some chocolate, some red apple, red pears, and the acidity is really solid into this one. And this gives you this solid finish. Now this one was a lot more balanced overhaul. You did get a lot more notes out of it when it got to the chocolate, caramel, the roasted notes, the wood tannins, the fruitiness, like the whole structure of it was way more developed. And I think that it shows that, you know, we're looking at a 3-year-old beer here, like 2018. It's just more developed, and the bourbon isn't taking over the whole thing like it did with the Larceny Barrel one, which is, you know, 1 year younger than this one. But for me, this one had such a solid finish, way well more developed, and a lot more complex. And the more that I taste these, I think the more time that they need in the actual bottle for them to fully develop. All right, to the final one, the Bourbon County brand Midnight Orange Stout 2018. Now, this color is black to brown, once again, like all the previous ones. On the nose, has oranges to chocolate mix with some mocha chocolate, and this is so zesty. On the mouthfeel, this is subtle, and it delivers all of the zesty fruit of the tangerine, orange peel, the chocolate, but once again, the alcohol is high and the acidity pushes wood tannins that are complex, spicy, and lengthy. This was like eating a chocolate orange cake, you know, like the actual chocolate. This was so good, and you know, again, 2018 vintage, This has 3 years in the bottle. This was so complex, so well delivered. This had, 15 plus alcohol, but yet it wasn't there. And like I said previously, these beers, they need time in the bottle. If you're buying them fresh and pouring them and thinking to yourself, like, why is this so high in alcohol? Well, that's the problem. They do need time to sit in here and really age properly. And I think that if I would have a choice here of how to actually buy these beers, well, I would recommend that you buy multiple of them, at least 4 of them, and you drink one out of the gate. You wait 2 years, you drink another, 2 years, you drink another, 2 years, you drink another, because most of these will age between 2 to 5 years. So like that, you could really see the evolution, and you could see like where was the peak and when it died off. All right, let's do a quick recap of all of them so you can see what you should buy and what you should pass. But I can tell you right now, these are all buying opportunities. And yes, this is all a buy for me, but let's cover them quickly. Starting with the first one, that was the Bourbon County Brand Special No. 4 Stout 2020. This is just a classic beer, and this is just part of a classic barrel age program. So of course, it's a buy. Then we have the Bourbon Brand Stout Old Forester 2020. This was high on bourbon, but for me, I think that this just needs more time in the bottle. And eventually, in 3 to 4 years, this will be delicious. Then we have the Bourbon County Brand Kentucky Fog. This was by far my favorite when it came to the nose. Just a beautiful, pretty nose. Then we have the Bourbon County Brand Stout 2020. This just had a lot of alcohol, and like I said, it needs more time in the bottle, but still really good. Then we have the Bourbon County Brand Stout 2019. This had a super long finish and was better balanced than the 2020. Then we have the Bourbon County Brand Monsieur Stout 2019. This was so solid. I really love this one. This was just a wow. The cherries on here were insane. Then we have the Bourbon County Brand Wheatwine Ale Larceny Barrel 2019. This had a lot of fruit, but like I said, it needs more time in the barrel so that the high alcohol can disappear. Then we have the Bourbon County Brand Wheatwine Ale 2018. This was better than the Larceny one, but like I said, I think it's due to being 1 year older than the previous one. And finally, we have the Bourbon County Brand Midnight Orange Stout 2018. This was just so good, and it was like eating a chocolate cake. These are classic beers. Yes, they are expensive. Yes, you're looking between $15 to $30 depending if you can find what market you're in and so on. But if you're going to go after these, I suggest that you get at least more than 3 of them. If you can get 3 of them, drink one out of the gate, wait a year or 2, drink another one, wait a year or 2, drink another one. Remember, these are expensive, but if we'd be comparing it to regular wine where most people buy a case of wine and they drink 1 bottle every year or every other year so that you can see that wine evolve over time, it's the same thing with these beers. It's important that you keep that context in mind. Yes, these are hard to get, and yes, this is an expensive beer. Is it worth it? Of course it's worth it. This is the original Barrel program. These are readily available pretty much everywhere you live in the country because this is Anheuser-Busch. They have massive distribution. They make a lot of these, so you can find them pretty much anywhere. All right, that's gonna do it for me, IAMOBG for tastingskills.com. Please remember to smash that like button, and you need to subscribe. Now go down there and click the bell. Otherwise, my friend, please remember, stay sober. Peace.